this session, I'm talking about stress. Now, I must say, before I start, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist. I'm just a guy who wants to make the world a little better every day, and me coming to you and talking about these things, you take on the ideas if you wish, try them out, put them through the washing machine of your mind and have a go at them. And if they worked, tell me all about them in the comments. If they don't work, tell me about them all in the comments. Or if you've got any other ideas, pop them in the comments as well. But today I'm talking about stress. And I'm not talking about heavy stress. Now, stress is a very, very important subject to talk about and affects our lives, and anxiety, and people are quite anxious maybe at the moment because of all sorts of things in their life. If you have that type of stress, I would strongly recommend that you do get some professional help. There's lots of ways to get help. There's private help, of course, but there's also help on what in the UK we have the National Health Service. There's your doctor, there's people, your work colleagues. Many of you may have in your workplace a helpline that you can call. Please do use those services. Those services are there to help people, and they're there. So I'd strongly recommend that you look at those services that are available to you. But today I'm going to be talking a bit about stress and how it affects us, and then 5 possible ways to alleviate that stress or rethink it or refocus that stress. So when I think about stress, I think about that fight, that flight, or that freeze feeling that we have. So, people talk about stress, don't they, when they talk about when we were in the caves and we ran away from the big scary monsters, and we did a couple of things. We either fought and had a good old Barney with that animal, or we ran away, or we froze and was eaten. But it's always come back to what is the feeling? What is the feeling associated with stress? Now, in your head, in your brain, you have many different areas of the brain, and it's said that we go back to our very simple brain when we are facing a situation or a challenge, and we fight it, we flight it, we freeze it, or we feel it. Now, I'm going to encourage you, when I'm talking about this topic today, is to think about the feelings you go through. Are your feelings psychological? Are they in your head? Or are your feelings outside? Because often stress manifests in itself to a feeling outside. So we might get our heartbeat going, we might get sweaty palms, we might get a rash on our neck here. Sometimes you see people getting a rash on the neck when they're in an interview situation because the blood is pumping and your body is responding to that natural stress. And sometimes you do need stress to keep you going, to motivating you. The laws of nature says that if you just keep it going, at the same pace at the same time, and you don't have, some stresses in your life, you don't improve. And if you think about bamboo, for example, bamboo is a very, very hard wood when it grows, but bamboo has to grow in the wind, and it constantly is stressing itself, and as it grows, the shell outside of the bamboo gets harder and harder and harder and harder, and then it stands up straight, as we see canes of bamboo as we see them. Same with trees, same with plants. They need that stress. They move around to the sun, they stress themselves all the time. Now, using that positive stress is okay. For humans, imagine it like a roller coaster. Going on a roller coaster is fun, isn't it? It's exciting, the ups and downs. That's why we love being on a roller coaster. Whoa, whoa, like that. And that's a strange sound I'm saying there, for a roller coaster. But we go through that roller coaster. But imagine if you went on that roller coaster every day and kept repeating it and kept repeating it. That's when that lack of control, if no one's switching the off button and you keep going on that roller coaster, going up and down, up and down, up and down, then you could say that lack of control starts to make you feel stressed. So, as we're now talking about stress, I want you to start to think about your own stress and how you deal with it and how you experience it. And the 5 tips I'm going to come up with, maybe you've heard them before, and that's okay. Sometimes we need to be reminded and repeat. We need to repeat things, but just take on one maybe and see how that plays out for you. So let's start. Where is your stress stored? Is it in your head? Is it in your heart? Is it in your gut? Is it in your legs? Is it in your back? Where does that stress happen? Do you get that, the tense shoulders? Where do you get it? Or do you get tingly fingers? What's that sort of feeling? And maybe what you could perhaps do is just get used to where that is in your body. And I know this sounds strange, folks. Name where it is and send, healing to that part of your body. Now that may sound way, but sometimes if you focus on something and focus into it and breathe into it and you breathe into it, sometimes that helps the stress go away. So if you think about it, if I've got stress in my shoulders, the automatic reaction, I started to do it there, didn't I? I started to move my shoulders. And what am I doing as well? I'm breathing, I'm opening up my lungs, aren't I? And the blood's pumping back into my shoulders. Maybe they've gone stiff because of the way I'm sitting. Same with, this chair's not particularly good, actually. I'm going to get a new chair for this office. But, tingling in my legs. You've got to get up and move your legs. So I think one of the things is just be aware the stress is. So here's tip number 1. Daily activities that reduce stress. I bet you've never thought about it like this, have you? Bet you've never thought about washing the dishes or hoovering as stress relieving mechanisms. Being mindful about those activities. So, as you're scrubbing your plate and you're scrubbing the gravy off from maybe you've had your Sunday lunch, just be mindful about it. Be mindful of the water, be mindful of the feeling, be mindful of the clean dishes. Take pride in the dishes that you're cleaning. Be grateful of the wonderful things that you had on your plate that day. I know it sounds strange, but daily activities to reduce stress are really important. Just being mindful about those activities. And of course, structure is important as well. What about your sleep times in your daily activities? Are you getting enough sleep? That can be a hidden stress causer if you're not getting enough sleep. Now, I try and get about 8 hours sleep a night. I often am asked, how do I do that? Well, I have a routine. I'm usually in bed by 10 and usually awake by 6. Even if I can't sleep, when I go to bed at 10, I can't fall asleep. And I actually fall asleep very quickly because I have a technique which I'll talk about later, maybe at the end of this. So I fall asleep very quickly. And that reduces my stress because your body, your sleep rhythms help you with your stress and they restore your body. So get that structure, the sleep times. Maybe when you eat as well, think about when you eat at times and what you eat. It's very important, reducing that stress. Do you have fresh stuff? Do you drink water? I know it all sounds the same, and I've said this before, and loads of people have said this, but it's so important because we're not talking about that flight, fright, or freeze. We're talking about that feeling of helping us. Now, I want to talk about here something called the vagus nerve. Now, I haven't got time to go into all the science behind the vagus nerve, but there's a nerve in your body that goes through your body that controls your breathing, your anxiety levels. It controls your heartbeat. It reacts with your gut. It reacts with your brain. Go onto the internet and have a look up the vagus nerve. Not the vagus nerve, because that's something different. That's in the middle of a desert and where people have lots of gambling going on. The vagus nerve, and it's sort of here. And there's some work being done, and it's been done for a long time, about sort of tapping, and you hear people about tapping, about stress. For me, I'm comfortable with that feeling. I'm comfortable with reducing stress, but sometimes I think when you feel stress and you start to feel it in your body, maybe just put your hands here on your heart or near your heart or heart center and just take a breath for a minute and just have that bit of control back. Stop that roller coaster and just maybe change your posture a bit and just feel into the time. For me, that reduces my stress and the stress and that whole posture thing is so important. Sitting up. How many of you are watching this video now, maybe a bit slumped in your chair, or you're lying down with your phone up like this or whatever? I'm talking to you, that's right. Why don't you just sit up for a minute and just be active with me and take this mindfulness moment with me and think about all the things to improve. So that's number 2, changing your posture. Go for a walk, get some exercise. There's so much research now about getting out for walking. And if you remember when we had those uncertain times of COVID and various things and people were in lockdown, I think one of the basic pleasures that everybody enjoyed was getting out and going for a walk and getting fresh air. And just having that moment. It could be 5 minutes, it could be half an hour. Benefits of walking, I just think, are really coming into their, into their forefront now, and people are talking about that. So that's the first one. So we've got daily activity to reduce stress. We've got our posture. I want number 3 to think about practice. Now, to practice your stress. What are you talking about, Steve? Practicing your stress? Well, if you think about it, there are times in our day when we feel stressed. So, do you feel stressed when you're in the car and you get stuck in traffic? Yeah, okay, that happens. Or do you get stressed before you leave for work, or you just get stressed when the telephone rings and you see your boss's name on it? Oh, and you go, oh, yeah, a bit stressed with that. So, if you know that happens, why don't you come up with a list that says, if this happens, I will do this instead. So, if I'm in the car and I'm starting to feel stress, I have got now a bit of a rule. If I start to feel stress, I sit back. I'm in the car, obviously, and I'm driving, or I'm in a traffic jam, and I like to now give myself a little treat in those traffic jams. I just breathe into it. I start to look around and start to notice nice things. Now, that could be quite challenging if it's raining and you've been on the M1 for hours, but it just changes and shifts that in your head. So if this happens, I will do this. If my boss calls and the name comes on the screen, I'm just going to wait a minute, take the call, take the moment, and then pick up the call and just say hello in the most positive way I can. I've worked out what to happen. What about other stresses? What about when things just don't go your way? Things go, in your head. Are you prepared for that? Have you rehearsed the idea? This is a learning activity. Every day is a learning activity. So that practice comes. What about practicing some rest time, some meditation time? And again, we talk about meditation a lot. Now, my view of meditation isn't being in an orange robe on a mountain with flip-flops on, and I don't even know if those people wear flip-flops anyway. But being there, in Zen, like, and ding, and all that music going and all that psychedelic stuff going. No, that's, for me, meditation is just being at one with my thoughts and my body, and just for a moment, just taking that time out. Being in that quiet, that non-social media space. It's great to be social. It's great to be around people if you're feeling stressed and talking through and connecting. But social media is not a place to practice stress and be, because the influences and all those little micro influences that you're not noticing, and all those things that are coming at you, with regard to social media and news. For me, when I feel anxious or when I feel stressed, I just try and be calm and quiet as possible and not have all that media. And I don't look at the news now. I don't look at the news. My routine for news, basically, I quickly have a quick scan through on a Sunday morning on my iPad onto one of the non-biased papers, but I think they're all the same, really, to be fair. And I just flick through and just see if there's anything that interests me. So we've got some things about practicing there. What about reframing and challenging self with regard to stress? So you might find a situation stressful. Why don't you flip it? Why don't you flip it and call it a challenge? Why don't you challenge yourself in small doses, maybe? Being more mindful about the challenge and the reasons why you're feeling stressed, and challenging yourself. Say to yourself, in the next 25 minutes, I'm going to do this activity. It may be stressful, but I'm going to do it for 25 minutes and set a timer and do it, or 17 minutes, or whichever time. Other time sections are available. Whatever you use. Michael talks a lot about 17. I talk about 25 minutes. It doesn't really matter, but you're just setting yourself that challenge. If your environment's not clean to your liking, or whatever, the kitchen's a bit messy, say you give yourself 17 minutes to tidy that kitchen from top to bottom, or sort your wardrobe if that's what causing you stress, or you've got emails to write and then backing up. Give yourself 17 minutes to get through all those emails and just make it a bit of a challenge, make it a bit more fun. So we've talked about daily activities. We've talked about changing your posture and physical and exercise and the vagus nerve. We've talked about practicing. If this happens, I will do this. And then our last thing was about challenge. So my last tip, and I always do number 5, but this is number 5, is about writing it down. Why don't you write it down, the things that are causing you stress? So, and ask yourself a couple of very empowering questions. Ask yourself, will this matter in 5 minutes? or 5 hours or 5 days time. You choose the number, it's up to you. Some things just don't matter in the moment. So they matter in the moment, but they don't matter around the moment. And I often find, oh, that's causing me stress now. Write it down, get out of my head, ask the questions, why is it stressful? Where is it stressful? You know, who's involved in that stress? Can I remove one of those factors? And then let it go for a couple of minutes or a couple of moments. Close the book, fold up the piece of paper, switch the laptop off down, switch the phone just switch it off for a minute and just go, whew, let it go, just let it go. It's not getting rid of it, it's probably still there, but it's lessening it. It's lessening it, isn't it? And as I said, my coffee cup may be a large coffee cup now, but as it goes back and back, it's a smaller coffee cup. Maybe you want to think about it like that. And then I have a bit of a nighttime routine, which I talked about earlier, about writing things down. And I go through this routine before I sleep every night, and it actually really helps me go off to sleep quite quickly. Firstly, I take 5 big deep breaths in and I get used to the bed and where I am and just feel the sheets and, you know, just get ready for bed. Obviously, room's dark and quiet and cooler than other parts of the house, but I ask myself a couple of questions, and I've added a new question to my routine, which I have to say I've been doing for the past 68 days. And I know that sounds strange, I can list off 68 days, but I'm doing another 100-day challenge at the moment, and that's helping me to remember where I'm up to. So day 68, I've been saying to myself before I fall asleep, what am I going to let go of today? So something that's happened in my day that I think to myself, I'm going to let that go. I'm just going to let it disappear. And I could, you know, have the image of it floating away in a balloon or dissolving, but something that perhaps has irked me that day, I love that word, irked me that day, that's caused me stress, that's pressed my stress button or made me go, you know, that type of feeling that I've got. And I just let it go. It might be the way somebody spoke to me. Yesterday, it was the way somebody spoke to me in a shop. Yeah, that was mine. I'm not going to say where, but that shop, that particular shop and that particular person in that shop, yeah, not the best customer service I've experienced. So I decided to let that go last night. And then when I was getting ready to do this talk with you guys today, I thought about how could I challenge myself. So I'm challenging myself every time I go in that shop now. I'm going to make that person's day. I'm going to try and make their day every time I go in, no matter how they react to me as a customer. I'm going to make their day, and that's the challenge I'm going to do. And that just comes from my nighttime routine of asking, what can I let go of? You might be letting go of the weather. You might be letting go of a meal that didn't go wrong. It might be you're letting go of you didn't get maybe a job that you went for, or you didn't get the outcome that you wanted. Just letting it go. And that's number one question. Number two, I ask myself, what am I grateful for? I just list a few things, and they don't have to be the big things. They can be little things. They can be a nice cup of coffee. It could be the weather. It could be that the sheets dried on the line very quickly. Just what am I grateful for? What went well? What didn't go well? That's question number three. Just a quick review of the day. I'm not trying to diagnose everything because I do that later on in the weekly review I do. But just what went well today, what didn't go so well, what did I learn? That's question number four. And then the last one is, what am I looking forward to tomorrow? And those questions are actually stress-reducing questions. What can I let go of? Takes the pressure off. What am I grateful for? Fills my body with grateful feelings, which is a great emotion. Told you it was all about feeling, didn't I? What went well? Accepting what went well. Accept these things. Accepting some things don't go well. What am I learning? You know, gives me some hope, gives me some looking forward to it. I can change things, gives me the control of the roller coaster. And then what am I looking forward to tomorrow? That gives me some positive things to look forward to for the next day coming. Well, I hope you enjoyed my little session on stress and those 5 things, you know, those 5 things to reduce stress. Most important is being aware of how you feel stressed, psychologically, physiologically. How can you have daily activities to reduce that stress? How can you change your posture? You know, Nat Wenger's nerve, get that going. And do have a look on the internet about the research. It's very interesting. Practice what happens. If this happens, I'll do this. Take some time out. Challenge yourself. Have that reframe of stress and be mindful about it, be mindful of the other influences around the social media, etc., and use those review questions to write things down. Thanks for watching.